everyone, hope you're having a great day. Now before I get into the bulk of this video, I thought I'd share a bit of the progress on how my book is going, and this is pretty much it. Every single one of these cards is a plot point that happens in the book at some point. Now, you probably can't read any of that, but there is a lot on here. All the different character arcs, all the different obstacles, plot twists, there's a lot of those in there. I didn't plan that going into it, but there is a lot of plot twists. It's pretty exciting. While I was writing the last few of these cards, I actually started getting giddy and excited myself, like I was already a fan of the book before it's even been written. So I know I'm pretty biased, but it's actually a really cool book and I can't wait for you to read it. Alright, so that's all I wanted to say, so let's get back to the main video. Alright, so after the first installment of this series came out, I asked you guys what you wanted to see in the next installment. And this time you guys picked how I come up with book ideas. That's a really fun question. It's also not a particularly straightforward one. I've been writing continuously for 15 years and I don't think any moment of inspiration has ever been like another. It is the writer's curse. Anything and everything could be inspiration for a story. Listening to a random song, boom, story idea. Looking at a picture on my camera roll, boom, another story idea. I probably have enough story ideas to keep me writing until the end of my days. Of course, not every one of those ideas is good. Coming up with an idea is easy. Coming up with an idea that will actually make a good book or screenplay or something is a completely different story. But of course, every so often I do actually come across a really good idea. This one, the one that I'm turning into a novel, I love so much. It makes me really excited. I think it's going to be a great book. So I reckon if I talk about how I came up with and developed a novel-worthy idea, it might help you come up with your own novel-worthy idea. So the origin of this story is pretty funny because it was originally kind of fan fiction. I was thinking about The Legend of Zelda and I don't exactly remember what I was thinking of, but I had a kind of funny little idea about a Zelda game that would never happen. So you'd have your classic Link, you know, the stoic, silent, warrior, adventurer. But then Zelda, instead of being this elegant, graceful beacon of wisdom, was just this annoying little girl who wouldn't stop pestering Link. And you know, sort of follows him around Hyrule like a sort of less helpful Navi. It was a stupid little idea and I in no way had the resources to make this game a reality. But you know, I did find it kind of funny and I did think about it a lot. Started developing the plot, the lore, different characters. And before I knew it, it kind of separated itself from Zelda and become its own little thing. And I realized, hey, this could actually be a pretty great standalone novel. So I changed Link and Zelda to Peric and Sophie. Those names changed very quickly, don't worry. And here we are. And you know, it may be kind of unorthodox, but I think it's a really good way to come up with an idea. Start with something you love. Take a story you're really passionate about and ask, what if this was different? Or what if this happened next? If you're a big fan of Avatar, you might think, oh, well, The Legend of Korra was kind of like a steampunk/industrial revolution spin on the Avatar formula. What if the next Avatar was kind of set in the modern day? Or what if the Avatar after that was cyberpunk? By then the Avatar would be a firebender. That would be really cool. Or if you really like Legally Blonde, you might ask something like, alright, what if Elle Woods, instead of getting into law school, got recruited by like a government agency or something and became a spy? Right away I can see a lot of potential in that sort of an idea. And you know, the reason I say start with something you love instead of start with the story you love is that you can really take inspiration from anything. If you do something like sailing or canoeing or any sort of boating really, you probably had an intrusive thought along the lines of, what if I just sailed over to that island and then didn't come back, just lived there? That could be a good story. It doesn't matter what your idea is. It could be the best idea or a pretty lousy idea. It's only going to work if you care about it. That's what I really like about this method. If you're passionate about something, you're going to see something in it that nobody else can. Obviously, once you have the idea, it's going to evolve and change. You know, my story pretty much doesn't even resemble Zelda in any way anymore. It'll grow and become its own thing. And it really should, because I do not condone ripping off other people's ideas. My second suggestion for coming up with great ideas is to write everything down. I seriously cannot recommend this enough. Have a journal on hand at all times. This little guy has been my best friend these past few months. Write down dreams, write down funny little thoughts you have. Write down offhand remarks you hear across the room that sort of pique your interest. Someone says, oh, I wonder what the economy would look like if cows were in charge of the government. Write that down if you find that funny. Even if you don't think it would make a good story, you can never have too much written down. Most of the stuff in here will never ever be used, but there is a lot of ideas in here that I'd completely forgotten about and have actually been really helpful in this process of developing the story into what it needs to be. Even in the plotting stage, there are many times when I've kind of forgotten the character's motivation or why they're doing this, their goal, and I'm always really happy when I realize that I had actually written that down in my journal. Even the dumbest idea that never gets used could have something that fixes an otherwise perfect idea. So that is my favorite suggestion. My next suggestion is to go beyond vibes. You know that feeling when you're listening to a really good song or you see like a perfect shot in a movie and instantly you get what seems like a great idea for a book, maybe like a gorgeous scene or character lore. It's a great feeling. I'm pretty sure sure most of the ideas in this journal came from a song. However, if you do have an idea for a book or a screenplay based on these awesome vibes, I would hold off on writing for a little bit longer. A few years ago, I had what I thought was the best idea that has ever been come up with in the history of writing. I was listening to the song Weird Woods from Kirby's Epic Yarn, and I just instantly had this beautiful picture in mind of a little girl and some sort of small space creature surrounded by beautiful cosmic colors. And I thought, wow, that is such a good idea. I'm going to adapt this into a screenplay right away. Needless to say, that didn't happen. I did adapt that vibe into a sort of story, but because I was adapting it mostly to fit the vibes of the song, there was a lot of elements that every good story has that I kind of made less of a priority. You know, things like originality, plot, character development, that sort of thing. So there I was, happily typing away my screenplay, thinking, oh, this is gonna make so much money. This is gonna be the best movie that's ever been made. And I hadn't even realized that it was pretty much just Technicolor Iron Giant, cross Lilo and Stitch, cross Bee and Puppy Cat. I was so overwhelmed by the coolness of the vibes that I didn't realize that I was actually telling one of the least original stories in the history of the world. Oh no, she has to say goodbye to the creature at the end, or everyone's gonna be so sad. When in reality, I'm sure they wouldn't have been any sadder than when Hogarth said goodbye to the Iron Giant, or when Elliot said goodbye to E.T., or any of the countless times that had already happened in a different movie. Okay, I think I'm probably being a little hard on myself. You know, in my defense, the vibes were immaculate. They would have been great in a movie that worked. And you know, if I just given the idea a bit more thought, I probably would have come up with something much more original. Maybe if it wasn't just one small creature, it was hundreds of small creatures. Or if instead of a little girl, it was a 9-foot-tall monster. Stories inspired by vibes can absolutely become good stories eventually, but they're probably not going to be good immediately. And finally, my last suggestion is that nothing is too stupid to be a possibility. If you sit around waiting for the perfect story idea to fall into your laps, you are never going to write anything. The most brilliant of all ideas is going to start off pretty unimpressive. The only way you're going to get there is by being open. Say you're walking through an underground car park at a shopping center and you see one of those doors that says staff only. Suddenly you remember that when you were a kid, you always wondered what was behind those doors. Heavy machinery, an elevator, or maybe something a little more fantastical. Suddenly you might think you have an idea for a kid's book, but then as quickly as the idea came, you think, oh no, Narnia is already a classic book series about mysterious worlds behind closed doors. This kind of thing has happened to me countless times, and it really shouldn't. Yes, there are other stories about mysterious doors that lead to magical new worlds, but the best stories come when you stop thinking about ways that your story is similar to other stories and start thinking about ways that your idea is different to other stories. Take my idea, for example, the one I'm turning into a novel. When that idea started out, it was generic as can be. It was basically some medieval knight on a quest story. That story has been told a million times before for centuries. I knew that. I was looking for how my story could be different, and I could not find it. So I was racking my brain trying to think of some way that I could make this into an original story. And I don't even remember how it happened, but I thought to myself, hey, you're just assuming that this story takes place in medieval Europe. What if it instead took place in the middle of the desert? So I took a step back and thought about what it would mean if I changed the setting of the story, and I quickly realized that was exactly what I was looking for. Heaps of things fell into place and started to make sense. It worked better thematically. It truly fixed so many problems for me. It changed the whole thing for the better. So if you think that you might almost have a good idea, I would encourage you to take a step back and think outside the box. Maybe go on a walk, talk things out with a friend. But I truly do believe that any idea has the potential to be good if you're willing to stick with it, and within no time at all, I'm sure you'll be writing on post-it notes and sticking them up on a whiteboard, feeling pretty proud of yourself. Well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it's been helpful for you, or at least entertaining. If you have any questions or suggestions or ideas for the next episode, feel free to drop those in the comments. That would be very much appreciated. Also, the Mario movie is coming out in a few days, so I will be making a review for that. I am so hyped. It's going to be awesome. Hopefully, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any fun new videos. And if I can get my review out promptly, I'll probably see you pretty soon. So until then, have a wonderful rest of your day.